are separating. The leaves are still connected to the spine. The fact they're separating does not invalidate the lulav, right? That is the opinion of the Chachamim. So now the Gemara wants to understand what is the reason for this machlokas. What's the reason why Rabbi Yehuda holds that the leaves have to be tied together? And if they're not tied together, if some of the leaves are hanging to the side, it will be invalid. So the Gemara said, Rabbi Yehuda Tanya Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Rabbi Tarfon, Kapos Tamorim. The language of the Torah, when the Torah talks about the palm branch, the lulav, it refers to it as kapot tamarim, which means literally, let's say, branches of a date palm tree. And kapot could also be read kafut. The same word kapot is, you know, the Torah doesn't have vowels, and it can also be read as kafut. Kafut, which means tied up. So therefore, from that he learns that the Torah is hinting to the fact that you have to have it tied up, that it can't be, that meaning if some of the leaves are hanging, they have to be tied together. That's what he says. Kapot or kafut. If the leaves were separated, then you have to tie them together. Good morning, Mr. Hamer. Omale Ravina Ravashi. So Ravina says to Ravashi that, you know, on this palm tree, there are many branches. You know, there's this lulav branch that we identify as a lulav branch, but there are other branches that become hard by staying on the tree a certain amount of time. So the Gemara's question is, how do you know that the pasuk, when it says lulav, now yes, we have a tradition that a lulav, that the lulav on Sukkot is the lulav that we take. But the question is, do we see it in the pasuk? In the pasuk itself, in the verse itself, does it hint to this idea? Does it allude to the idea? Can we see, without the Torah Shabbat Peh, without the oral law explaining that kapot tomorrow means a lulav, you wouldn't know clearly that it's referring to the lulav part of the tree. But where do we see in the verse itself that it could allude to that it means the lulav branch? Because there's other branches on that tree, on that date tree. There are branches that harden after a certain amount of time, and they become very, very, very hard. And there are certain stems that come out from these branches, and they also become hard. Maybe it's referring to those parts of the tree. How do you know it's referring to this part of the tree, which is more the lulav part of the tree, which is very pliable, a very, very soft part of the tree? That's the Gemara's question. The haikofas tomorrow the lulhu ema charuta. Maybe it's the part of the tree which is the charuta part of the tree. It's part of the tree that becomes hard after a couple of years, and maybe it's referring to that. So the Gemara says, answers the following. Okay, the first question of the Gemara was, high branches together. That they should be together. There'll be a lot of space. Got to get a special holder for this look. There'll be a lot of space. There'll be a lot of space if you between the branches to tie them together because they're very hard. They don't. It's not going to be really tied properly. So therefore, the Gemara says you can't. It can't be that type of branch. The hard. It can't refer to the hard branch on the lulav tree that was there for multiple years. That's very hard. The way they explain it, that if you look on note number 17, the branch of the palm tree that has hardened for 2 or 3 years, and many stems branch off from the center one, and they in turn have hardened, with each one pointing in a different different direction. So these are very hard. Because they're very hard, they won't be able to be. Maybe it's referring to that part of the tree. It can't be because it's not. You can't tie those things together. They're too hard to tie together. So the Gemara says the ema ufta. Maybe it's referring to the ufta. The ufta means, let's say, the actual a piece from the trunk of the tree. Take off they say they take a piece of the trunk of the tree, and maybe that could be the lulav, the part of the tree that the Torah wants. The Gemara says kafut mechladika parut. The fact that the pasuk says it has to be tied together, something has able to be tied. This part of the tree is able to be tied together. This lulav, if the leaves come separate, you can tie it together, and it's united. It's like one. But something that's part of the bark of the tree, that there's nothing to tie together. It's the original bark of the tree, right? There's nothing to tie together. So you can't say it's referring to that. But if I tell you kafut, that you have to be something you could tie together, that means it's something that has the ability to be detached, separated. But that part of the tree, the trunk of the tree, the bark of the tree, a log from the trunk of the tree was never in itself. The log is just a separate log. It has no parts of it that could be possibly tied together. So the Gemara says ima kufra. Maybe it's referring to the kufra. So Rashi says that's also similar to we said about part of the tree that, like one of the branches of that palm tree that gets hard, but maybe it's referring to the part of that kufra, but it's not so thick yet, and you could technically bend its branches on tying it together. Meaning, if certain part of the tree, certain part of the wood part of the tree, of the palm tree, that after 2-3 years it gets very hard. If you want to connect those branches together, you wouldn't be able to tie them together. But if it, let's say, didn't reach that level of 3 years, Rashi says. Rashi says, let's say it's 1 year, it's the first year of that part of the tree. So it's a certain amount, it's a certain amount thick, but it's not thick so much. So you can't like that, because the Torah, that's not the lulav of the Torah. The Torah identifies the lulav by using kapot, or kaput. Kaput means that it's tied. Something has the ability to be tied. So this part, it needs to be something that if it's separated, it could be tied together. So this is something that if it's separated, the leaves separate, you could tie together. But if it's a part of the tree that's a very thick part of the tree, thickens after a certain amount of time, or some part of certain branches of the tree, you can't tie this branch together with that branch, because since they're so hard, try to tie two branches together to be a united one. It's not really tied together. You can bundle it, but you can't really tie it together. It's not really tied together. Tied means that it to be like one, uniform, like one, like this, very like a rod, like a stick. So the Gemara says, well, maybe the part of the tree, which is the kufra part of the tree, maybe that also should be. I gotta just hold it in my hand. So maybe that also should be good. So the Gemara says, see the way the commentary says, it's referring to a branch that is 1 or 2 years old. It began to harden, but it didn't harden enough that it can't be tied together. So maybe it's that part of the tree, which is not this part of the tree. The different part of the palm tree.
But is it?
It is the palm tree. It's part of the palm tree, but it's not right. Or it's part of the palm tree, but it's a different area of the palm tree. So maybe that would be the. So the Gemara says it can't be. The Gemara says, why not? The Gemara says, Amma Abaye, Diracheha Dache Noam, V'chol Nesivateha Shalom. This is an amazing concept. The way of the Torah is peaceful. All its ways are sweet, and all its ways are peaceful. And therefore, this palm shoot, this part of the tree that the Gemara has suggested that maybe that would be the part of the tree for the lulav, it has thorny projections that come out from that part of the tree. This lulav, you put your hands like this, you can run your hands across like this. You don't get poked. But this part of the tree that the Gemara has suggested, this part of the tree, if you would run your hand across it, it'll poke you. And the Torah will not give you something that the Torah will not give you a mitzvah to do that you're going to get hurt while you're doing the mitzvah. The ways of the Torah are sweet, and therefore it can't be that the Torah will give such a item for us. If you want to give such an item, right? There's no way the Torah will give such an item for you to go ahead and do a mitzvah with. The Gemara is going to say this also maybe by Aravot or Hadassim. The Gemara is also going to say this when the Gemara is trying to identify what the Hadassim, the Anaf Eitzavot, or what some of those other species that we take. The Gemara suggests maybe it's something else. So the Gemara says it can't be because that other thing that you're suggesting, if the Gemara talks about the Hadassim in the next page, the Gemara is going to suggest maybe it's a different type of item. The Gemara says that item is invalid, can't be. There's such a concept in the Torah that the Torah will not. There are certain rules of the Torah, and if it doesn't fit into those rules of the Torah, it can't be. So therefore, it can't be that the Torah is going to give you a hadassim or a lulav that you're going to get poked. It's not sweet. Doesn't fit into the ways of the Torah is sweet and peaceful, and therefore there's no such thing in the Torah that has such a concept of something that you're going to get hurt while doing while you're doing the mitzvah, and therefore. That shows you it can't be that. So therefore, what is it? The Gemara says. So therefore, by process, a certain sense of the word, by process of elimination, it's this part of the tree. This is the kapot tumorim. It's not the other items because they can't be tied together. It's not this part, other part of the tree because it has this issue of this thorny part. So what is it? Is that the Gemara shoots back? Well, maybe I have another part of the tree. The part of the tree that has the dates on it. Maybe I got to go ahead. The Gemara says, Omale Rava Tosva Ravina. Rava Tosva says to Ravina, we're on 32a2, but Ema Tarti Kapi de Tamri. Maybe I need to take 2 clusters of grapes, of dates. So maybe it doesn't mean. How do we know the Kapot Tumorim refer to the branch of the palm tree, this is just a branch. There's no dates. We're not taking any dates. Maybe we're supposed to take dates. There's a mitzvah bikurim, the first fruits you bring up to Yerushalayim. First fruits of your field, you bring up grapes. From the 7 species, you bring up fruits. So maybe the Torah wants you to take the dates. Listen, the same way the etrog is a fruit, the etrog is a fruit. So the same way the etrog is a fruit, maybe it's the fruit of the tree also, of the date tree that the Torah wants you to go ahead and take. So maybe you should go ahead and take 2 clusters of dates, the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, it says kapot ksiv. The way it's written in the Torah is kapot. Kapot is written without a vav. So even though we pronounce it kapot tumarim in the plural, but since it's written without the vav, So without the vav is kapat ksiv, which means kaput ksiv. That means without, not double, which means it's in a singular form. Just like the Torah says, luchot. When it talks about the luchot, the two tablets, the Torah writes two tablets using the word lamed chet taf, without a vav. Even though we pronounce it in the plural, it's written without a vav. Now, why is the two luchot, the 10 commandments, the two tablets? There were two tablets. It wasn't one tablet. Well, why is it written without a vav? Because there, the rabbis tell us that the two luchot were exactly identical. By using the singular form, just like it says, "Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged," the Jewish people camped in front of the Har Sinai. The Torah uses the word singular. Now it says they camped singular. So the rabbis teach us they were united. That was the time, the most united time in history of Jewish people, that they united was at Sinai. They all let things go. They were forgiving of each other when they got the Torah. That's why it said the singular language. So, and also we find by the luchot, they looked exactly the same. If you looked at one, they were exactly the same height, same size, same color. There was no that they were identical. Like identical twins. The luchot, the two tablets were identical tablets. And I once saw from Rabbi David Kriyat, he had said a beautiful idea. Why does the Torah need to tell us what's the significance that Hashem made that it should be identical? What's the point? What's the lesson? What about if one is a little larger than the other? What about if it's not exactly identical? As we all know that the luchot, the focus of the first tablet is about between you and God, keeping Shabbat, belief in God. The second tablet focuses on between you and fellow man. Don't murder, don't kidnap, right? Don't commit adultery. These are between man and fellow man. Sometimes in life, people might make a mistake to think I got to put that one is more important than the other. The way I deal between me and God is more important than how I deal with people. And there's some people that think it's all about being a good person, and not about focusing on what God has to say to me and God. Right? There's some good Jews at heart, but they're not in practice religiously. So the Torah wants to teach you by having the luchot exactly identical that they're equally important. Don't think one is more important than the other. That being a good person to my fellow man is more important than how I act towards God, or how I act towards God is more important than I act towards fellow man. They're both equally important. So that's maybe a beautiful idea of why the Torah created that, why Hashem wanted that the luchot should be exactly the same size, the same height, the same color, and everything identical, look like identical, because good morning, Michael.
Morning, Rabbi.
Because the Torah wants you not to give more focus, to recognize the importance of both equally important. How do you like that idea, Mr. Haber? Right, the wording is different, but the size of luchos and the height of luchos, you should have that outlook towards Adam lachavero, between man and fellow man. You should look at it as equally important as bein Adam lamakom, between you and God. And vice versa, between you and God is equally to bein Adam lachavero. Good morning, Michael.
Morning, Rabbi.
Amazing or not?
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning. Good to see you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry I'm late.
No problem. We believe in better late than never, not better never than late. We believe in better late than never. Okay. So the Gemara, we just said a beautiful idea just to share with Michael. We have two Michaels on the screen. We just said that the Gemara said that it can't refer to two clusters of dates. The Gemara is trying to figure out, we are on 32a2, we're trying to figure out how do we know that the lulav, you got to go ahead and take the lulav, the part of the palm tree, which is the lulav part of the palm tree. Maybe it's referring to kaput tumarim, maybe refers to, maybe it's two clusters, take two clusters of dates, of actual dates, not the lulav, not the branch. Maybe it's referring to two bundles, two clusters of dates. The Gemara said, because it uses the singular language, and the singular language is kaput. It's written in the singular language, and since it's written in the singular language, it can't be. It's referring to one cluster. Therefore, it can't be referring to two clusters of dates. That's what the Gemara said. So therefore, the Gemara said that when the Torah says you got to take you have to take kapot tamarim, it can't refer to two clusters of dates. So the Gemara says it doesn't warning mark. So it doesn't refer. So you're saying kapot tamarim is not two clusters of dates, but the chada. Maybe it's referring to one cluster of dates. How do you know? How do you know when the Torah says kapot tamarim? How do you know it's not referring to actual dates? You got to take a cluster of this. What Ariel? How do you know it's the lulav? It's the branch part of the tree. That's the Gemara's question. Where do we see in the pasuk that it's not referring to dates itself? How do you know it's referring to the branch? That's the Gemara's question. Now, like we said earlier, we definitely have a Mesorah. We definitely have a tradition. We have handed down from generation to generation, and that the part of the tree, it's the lulav. This is the part of the tree. Meaning, when the Torah was given with explanation, it was given with explanation that it means this part of the tree. But the Gemara wants to know: do we see in the verse, in the pasuk itself, that alludes to this idea?
So it's a palm tree, or it's a date tree that we use the leaves from the date tree.
I mean, it's a date. It's a date. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it says kapot tamarim.
I always thought it was a palm.
Is it a palm tree? Doesn't a palm tree grow dates?
A palm tree grows dates. That's the common palm tree. But it might not necessarily need to have. The common palm tree. The palm tree grows dates. But what I recall, it's possible that the tree could be a palm tree that even if it doesn't have dates, it's possible to also be kosher for lulav. Technically, it's a palm tree, but the common palm tree grows, and the Torah identifies it as a kapot tamarim, a palm tree. It identifies it of dates. That's how the Torah identifies the tree. But the Gemara's question is, maybe it's referring to, how do you know it's referring to the branch of the tree, of this tree, the palm, what we call a palm. Maybe it's referring to the dates itself. That's the Gemara's question. How do you know? It said because the Torah identifies it by saying kapot tamarim. So the fact that it's called kapot tamarim, so maybe it's referring to how do you know it's referring to the palm branch? Maybe it's referring to the actual dates of the tree. So the Gemara says, Lahu kaf korele. If you're referring to one, the Gemara, when it says kapot, because if that would be, if you refer to a cluster of one cluster of dates, you call it a kaf tamarim. You wouldn't use the word kapot tamarim. The fact that you use the word kapot tamarim, that means referring to the branch, referring to the palm branch. Kapot tamarim, it's the branch of the tree, and that's how we see that it's not, can't refer to the actual dates, because if it's a cluster of dates, it would not have said the word kapot. We refer to as kaf. We call it as a kaf, and if by using the word kapot, it shows you that we're referring to the palm part of, even a kaf of a hand. We call this a kapayim. This is called a kaf. This is a palm. This is called, and therefore we're saying that when the Torah says kapot, we're saying nesiot kapayim. When the Kohanim go ahead and they do birkat Kohanim, what is it called? Nesiot kapayim. It's the raising of the palms, the raising of the hands to the people, as Mr. Silverman is showing us. And here we're saying this is the palm, the palm of the tree is referring to that part of the tree that's the lulav. So now the Gemara says, Sine harabazel, the palms that grow of the iron of a certain area. It's called Sine Harabazel, that the Mishnah had stated earlier that Sine Harabarzel, when the palms grow in a different area, not in the normal type of area. The language of the Mishnah, Harabarzel, is the Iron Mountain, the palms of the Iron Mountain, and these are palms that grow in a particular section of Eretz Yisrael. It's a certain area in Israel that they grow these palms, that they're not the normal looking palms like we have over here. The palms that we have over here, we have, the leaves are pretty tall, right? The leaves are very, many of the leaves stand right next to each other. But these palms of this Sine Harabarzel, they grow in a way that they have very short leaves. The leaves do not match, they're not so long. And the way the leaves go, one leaf is like this, and the next leaf that comes up is like a little higher. Some of the leaves reach the next leaf. Some of the leaf doesn't reach the next leaf. They don't, and they are very short leaves running along the lulav. So you got short leaves. See, these leaves are not short leaves. These leaves are pretty wide leaves that are running across the lulav. These are long. These are tall leaves. But the Sine Harabaza leaves are very short. Imagine you have short leaf, a leaf that goes here, and then you have some more leaves that go like this, and you have more leaves that go like this. And so they're very, very short leaves. I think we have a picture over here of these. Right, because the Gemara is going to say whether this type of lulav, the Mishnah stated this lulav is kosher, and the Gemara is going to clarify what type, are all of these types of lulav that grow with these short leaves kosher or not kosher. So we're going to see if you have a picture. I don't know if you can see in this picture. I don't think on the screen. You have, let's say you have in the middle, you have, let's say, the spine in the middle, and then you have the leaves on the side of the spine. So let's say this is the spine, and then you have the leaves on the side of the spine. And then the leaves on the side of the spine, you see these leaves, all these leaves reach the next section of leaves. And this section of leaf hits into the other section of leaves above it, right? So I have a leaf over here. I have a leaf over here. This leaf over here reaches these leaves. This leaf reaches this leaf. This leaf reaches this leaf. But imagine if the leaves on the side were like this. This leaf only was this short. Then it doesn't reach the leaf, doesn't reach the high. And then coming out over here, higher up comes more leaves coming out. And there was space between this leaf and there's no leaves on top. There's like an empty hollow space, and then comes more leaves come out. So would that be kosher also or not? So that's what the Gemara is going to say. The Gemara is going to say it all depends. These short leaves have to at least reach the bottom of the next section of leaves that are growing on top of it. If this leaf is so short that it doesn't reach the next section, it's not going to be kosher. That's what the Gemara is going to say. Right, you have a spine. If you take a look at picture, here's the leaves on the side, then there's a space between the next section of leaves. If there's a space between here and here, so that's what the Gemara is gonna clarify, that there's a difference between. So the Gemara said that would disqualify. If that space, if you have these short, they don't even grow. They don't fall. This is the way the leaves grow. We are on 32A. 32A. Right. So we identified in order for our lulav to be kosher, it has to be a part of this tree that has to be something that has the ability of being tied together. It's not a hard part of the tree. We identified that. We identified it can't refer to the cluster, can't refer to clusters of dates. We identified it's the palm of the tree. And we also are now saying that if it's a palm that grows, it grows in a certain area of Israel that the leaves are very short. So now the Gemara is going to say that also works, but the Gemara is going to say provided that the leaves at least they reach the next section of leaves that come out from the lulav. If the leaves are too short that they don't reach the next section of leaves, that's going to invalidate the lulav. Let's and bad, right? That's what they want to say. What would make it? Because the Mishnah identified this Sine Harabarzel. The Mishnah identified this this type of palm tree, a palm branch that was good, even though the leaves are short. And comes the Gemara, comes Amar Abaye on 32a2. Amar Abaye says, 1 second. It's only he clarifies this point. Lo shanu el sharosh hazeh megil l'sadik v'shazeh. That's only if the top of this leaf, of these short leaves, reach at least the beginning of the next leaf. But if it doesn't, go ahead. If the top of this leaf does not reach the beginning of the next leaf, it's puzzle, it's invalid. Tanya Namihachi, the Gemara says, we learned in a Braita similar to this idea. Sine Hara Barzel, we have a Braita that says, Sine Hara Barzel Psula. This type of palm branch that grows in this section of Israel, we have a Braita that says it's pasul. Then the Gemara, how could the Braita say it's pasul? It's invalid. We learned that it's kosher. So the Gemara says it depends on the case. The case that the Braita said it's invalid, so the leaves are so short they didn't even reach the next section of leaves. The top of leaf number one, the top of this leaf didn't reach the next leaf. The next leaf started coming out over here, and there was space between these leaves and this leaf. What? You only had the spine, and the leaves all were. It's bare. It's empty. Right. So that's where it is invalid. But it sounds like it's a specific area in Israel. Not most of the trees that you see in Israel don't have this issue. This is like Sine Harabarza. It's a unique area that grows these type of trees.
I
So
think
the Gemara says,
it's called Barzel because they grow around rocks.
okay, very good. So the Gemara said, yeah, that's what he said. That's right. That's like barzel, like straw, like iron. So the Gemara says, we learned that they are kosher. So the Gemara says, El shmamina kabaye shmamina. You have to say like Abaye, that there are two different cases. The Braita that says it's invalid when the leaves were too short, and where it is, and when it says in the Mishnah that it's kosher, even though the leaves were short, but at least if the leaf reached the next area, the top of leaf number one reached the other leaf, the other leaf, therefore it's not considered invalid. So it depends on the case. And the Gemara says, V'ika, now we're turning the page on 32b, V'ika de Ramila Mirma. Some had it that they asked it as a contradiction. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Sinara Bazla Kosher, the Mishnah says that this type of palm is kosher, but Tanya Psula 32b1. Some asked it as a question. You said that Sin Harabaz is kosher, that it's kosher if it grows in this area, but Tanya Psula. We learned in a Braita that it's invalid. So Abaye lo kasha. Abaye said there's no contradiction. Kasha rosh shazeh magil tzadik shazeh. That's one place where it's kosher when the top of this leaf reaches the next leaf. The kasha in rosh shazeh magil shazeh. And where it's invalid is when it doesn't reach the next leaf. So that's what the Gemara qualifies for us. This type of lulav that is kosher is only if the leaf reaches the next leaf. Okay, we're going to continue tomorrow a little bit more. We're going to get into the size of hadassim, the size of a lulav, the size of a ravot. We'll continue tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
Hanukkah
Take care.
Sameach. Great day, Rabbi.
You too. Have a happy Hanukkah,
Everybody.
everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.